I suppose the story of the EP coming up began probably at the end of my uni days. That's where the first song comes from. And in essence, these songs are me navigating life. So there's it's quite raw. There's some mental struggles. There's some reflection on society. And really these songs take me up to the present day. One way that I have discovered over the last few years to be a really effective way of dealing with things is to turn it into a song. And every now and then one of those songs, you think that sounds okay. I want to see if anyone else can relate to that or take anything from that. And then slowly a small catalogue of songs has developed, and then it feels like I should do something with them now. So that's where I'm at with them.
Have you been playing these songs out live before?
I have, yeah. If you've been anywhere in Guernsey, you might have heard me play. I've been doing the rounds for 3 or 4 years, but I tend to play covers when I play out and about. People tend to find that easy to digest when they're having their meal or something, which is usually where I'm playing, in a restaurant or a hotel somewhere. But I have played most of these songs. A couple of them have been played on the radio before, so you might recognise a bar or two.
And have they developed along the way as well, or do they come ready formed and that's, magic done?
Definitely developed. So yeah, my writing process is me and my guitar. And that's how it's always been. But then recently I've had the great privilege of working with other musicians on my own music, which is something I've not had the pleasure of doing before. I've worked in bands before, but to have other people come along and say, oh, maybe we do this to your music, the first thing is like, whoa, hands off, this is my baby. But then obviously people are very good and they have some great ideas, and it's been really exciting actually to relinquish a bit of that control, open some different avenues. I've got a great double bass player, Pip, on the record, and he's just brought so much swing and elements of jazz to the record. So yeah, it's been good seeing other people help me develop as well.
If I take you back to where it all began for you with music, how did you get into the playing?
That's quite a long story. I think music's always been very much a part of my life, but my involvement with music actively is definitely developed over time. From an early age, the seeds were planted. I was from quite a musical household. So my mum's a dancer, and my dad played guitar. He played in a couple of bands, but his musical experience was very much secondhand from, I think his brother taught him, who learned from someone else. So it was fairly organic, and there was always music in the house. And then listening to my dad's mixed cassettes on long car journeys is my first memory of really noticing and appreciating music. There's bands like Aztec Camera, James, Crowded House, World Party, that sort of thing. Simon and Garfunkel, he used to sit and play that a lot at home. So I'd always grown up listening to music. Not that keen on playing myself at this time. If it wasn't football, I wasn't that interested. But then I remember listening to one of my sister's Now That's What I Call Music albums, and there was a song on, I think it was Now 61, Jack Johnson, Good People. And Jack Johnson's one of my biggest inspirations, and listening to him, the way he strips back songs, it was different to anything else that was coming out in the mid-noughties. I must have been about 10 or 11, and listening to the craftsmanship that you can hear in the song, I thought, oh, maybe I could do that. So that was when that seed was planted, that I might one day want to write and perform music. But then again, I didn't act on that. That lay dormant for a good 10 years or so. I played with playing guitar on and off throughout my teens, never stuck at it long enough to get any good, despite my parents encouraging me. And then it was only when I left home and I took a guitar with me at 18 that I started to play around with things. Well, I started to improve my guitar playing a little bit. I started to write poetry, but I couldn't quite put it to music because I didn't have the guitar skills. And then I did a humanities course at uni, and one of the modules was pop songs and poetry. And for our final practical piece, we had to write a poem or a song to perform. There was about 40 of us on the course, and we had to go in for the final presentation and recite our poem or song. And I was the only person who went in with a guitar, and I was the only person who did a song out of 40 people. And it went really well, and people said, oh, it was really good. And I thought, oh, maybe this is something that I can do that not everyone else maybe would think about giving a go. And I found the experience really cathartic. It helped me make sense of a messy situation I was in at the time with an ex-girlfriend. And from then on, I never looked back. This would have been, university, when I found that writing songs could be a tool, and then the kind of relief, I suppose, or I don't know what the word would be, but for playing that to somebody else, being able to express yourself in a way that I might not always be able to do with words. And it just kind of took off from there, really.
Do you have any sort of like key musical influences that you look to?
Certainly influences that I used to hear on my dad's mixtapes. So Aztec Camera I've mentioned, James, and then I suppose I also then found my own musical interests separately through whether that's at school or outside of that. Arctic Monkeys were very big when I was growing up. They just burst onto the scene, and they still are a huge influence on me. Not that my music sounds particularly rock and roll like theirs does. And then the more storytelling artists like Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, and especially Sixto Rodriguez. When I discovered him a few years ago, I discovered him through the Searching for Sugar Man documentary. That blew my mind, that documentary, and hearing a musical style that was so simple yet so different to anything I'd heard before gave me a lot of inspiration to try and produce my own sound.
Where would you like to take it as well? Is this something you'd like to Gulf Island tour, that kind of stuff? Or
I'd be lying if I said that wasn't the dream. Yeah, I'd like to. I'm at my happiest when I'm writing, performing, making, collaborating, playing music. If the world allows me to take that further and work that into some kind of, I don't know about career, it's more than a hobby at the moment, but it's not quite a career, so I'll take it as far as it lets me.
how much time do you spend on your music at the moment?
It varies massively. I'll go through phases where it's picking up a guitar is the first thing I do when I get home, and the last thing I do before going to bed. And then there's days or weeks, months maybe, when work gets in the way. You know what it's like once you're a proper adult. I'm not a student anymore. I don't have the nights where I could stay up and write till 6 in the morning. You have to schedule in creativity, which can be a bit of a paradox in itself when everything is timed. And then there's everything around it, so it's meeting up with other musicians. We obviously live in the social media world, so as a musician you have to be your own marketing expert, promoter, everything. So if you add up the hours that go into everything surrounding the music, then it's definitely a part-time job.
So you've got six singles on the as yet untitled EP. Can you just pick up a couple of highlights from that and talk us through those songs a bit more?
Yeah, I will do. I'll start with Sunlight's Exposure. So Sunlight's Exposure is, I suppose, talking about a time of my life which is behind me now. And that's one of the reasons why I definitely feel it's the right time to release this EP, to free up space to move on and start new things. But Sunlight's Exposure is that feeling you get around sunrise when you've perhaps been up the night before and not quite made it home. It was written started to be written at an after party in some stranger's kitchen when I looked around and realised I didn't really know anyone here. I should probably go home. And I think to some degree we all go through a stage like that in our lives. And it was very much reflecting on that in a kind of tongue-in-cheek way, and not quite being ready for the day ahead. So it tries to capture that moment and that feeling as you head home from then.
Obviously, like, reflecting on experiences that you have is such a key way of writing, and like obviously key part of your process. So what other songs have you got on there?
One that I wrote, this would have been must have just been after lockdown, the main one, and it's called I Don't Talk, and it's very much my, I suppose, contribution to the conversation around mental health, or men's mental health. Lockdown obviously was a tricky time for lots of us in very different ways, and for me, one thing that I found, I just moved back to the island, and didn't really have much of a support network, and I suppose went within myself quite a lot and slowly stopped talking so much. We all stopped connecting in a lot of ways, and culturally there was a bit of a push for men's mental health at this point. It's come on quite a long way in the last 10 years, but getting men to talk and open up was very much a message that was out there, and it was something I tried to echo and give my side of my story through that song, and I suppose just highlight that men don't always do that, even if maybe from the outside no one might have noticed anything going on with me, and yeah, just to encourage men to talk a bit more.
Yeah, another powerful message. And tell me a little bit more about the music video you've recorded as well, and sort of, what was the thought process behind that?
Yeah, so we had a lot of fun doing the music video. It is homemade, using a phone camera and nothing else. So it's myself and my partner Caroline. She is the photographer, she's the camera woman, and she did a fantastic job. So we filmed it in Guernsey. We got some lovely shots at sunrise, made the most of the beautiful East Coast. I dragged her out of bed at sunrise a few days in a row to get all the right shots, and we've put a little narrative together, and it is describing essentially that experience that I talked about before of not being ready for the day ahead after a big night before, We skipped most of the night before so that we were in a fit state to do the filming in the morning. But yeah, we had a go at the editing process. We've done it all just ourselves, and it's been a lot of fun.
It's like along with the recordings, it just sounds like another step in that sort of creative journey that you've been on from, you know, the person that was just picking up the guitar and not really that interested to really solidifying that, and now we're onto the recording and the video, like, you know.
Yeah, it definitely feels like one door opens the next, and because this is still my first, I suppose, cycle through the process of releasing and recording, there's so many elements to it that I just hadn't really thought about, if I'm honest. You know, obviously I watch music videos all the time. I grew up in the MTV age, but you don't imagine that the musicians you watch on TV are sat down scripting, storyboarding and editing their own music videos. But it's been a really, really fun process, and as you say, with the recording, and it's every step along the way. Usually it's involved meeting somebody else who's got a lot more experience in this area that I have, so stretchy with the recording or working with other musicians. And it just adds to the whole process. It adds to the bigger picture. And it's nice to do all the stuff around it and really feel like you're invested in your own project and doing it yourself, essentially.
And I guess that, like, one of the beauties of where we are now in terms of technology and being able to release stuff and record stuff, and like everything's like is there for you if you want to grab it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all there to do yourself, which you can look at it two ways, really, can't you? You can say, well, that's a lot, I'm not going to bother with that. Or you can have a go, and that's what I'm trying to do, just have a go. And one thing I've found, I don't know if this is just Guernsey, but I imagine it applies most places, the music world, people have a lot of time to offer you, whether it's just a conversation to help you out, or you know, they'll come and show you things. Learning from other people has really helped me.
We get to hear it all on Monday. Just give us the details of the launch party.
Yeah, Monday 28th of October. It's at Fish Club, which is above Pinky's in town. It's going to be a fairly relaxed, intimate, lounge-style gig. And I chose that venue for those reasons, really. Trying to think about when I'm a music listener or music goer, I much prefer there's very comfy chairs, the sofas, you don't have to shout to make yourself heard. It's very much a listening experience. I've got a couple of musicians with me, so Pip, the double bass player from the record, is going to join me. Sadly, Emma, who was playing viola and providing backing vocals on the record, is away, so she can't make it, but we've got a percussionist, a drummer who's recently moved to the island called Chris. He's going to play the cajon. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's spelled with a J. And I've also got support from Glenn Haimes, who you may know from Bordeaux Blue. He's going to provide some bluesy instrumental, and hopefully, if I can persuade him, some of his own music, which is beautiful. So it should be a really lovely evening of music. I'm going to premiere the new music video that I briefly spoke about, Sunlight's Exposure, and with any luck I will be announcing the date of the single releases, or at least the first one. So I should be able to tell you that on Monday as well.
You might even get a name for the EP as well, who knows?
I'm open to suggestions.
That's brilliant. All right, thanks for your time.
Thank you.